Joe.
Blacula.
Jews know who they are. They know their origin in the world. They know their history. Well, at the same time that they know theirs, the Chinese know theirs, the Japanese know theirs. And most human beings on this earth know theirs, but the black man has been deprived of the knowledge of his history. This is why this brother had to struggle for Pan-African studies so that black students could learn in a college environment some of the rich knowledge of our ancient history. Now look, if you disconnect the tree from its roots, the tree dies. If you disconnect the roots from the earth, the tree dies. The roots of a people is their history. And it's the history that when you know it, you draw nourishment from your history. Because your history teaches you the full range of possibility of what you and your people are able to do, what you're able to build. You know what you can do by knowing what your parents and your ancestors have done. And to deprive you as a black student of knowing anything about yourself is to put you in a position where you can't draw nourishment from a root because you've been cut off from your root. So you have a white American Eurocentric root that cannot nourish you to be the kind of people that you should be. Success is not by chance. They're not gambling to be successful. There are principles that you follow to be successful. When you find the synagogue, you find the shula next to the synagogue. What's going on in the synagogue? You don't go, so we don't know. But they're teaching their people from the traditions of the prophets. But the school is teaching them the history of themselves and their culture so that no matter where Jews go, they remain intact. Excuse me. Jews know who they are. They know their origin in the world. They know their history. Well, at the same time that they know theirs, the Chinese know theirs, the Japanese know theirs. And most human beings on this earth know theirs, but the black man has been deprived of the knowledge of his history. This is why this brother had to struggle for Pan-African studies so that black students could learn in a college environment some of the rich knowledge of our ancient history. Now look, if you disconnect the tree from its roots, the tree dies. If you disconnect the roots from the earth, the tree dies. The roots of a people is their history. And it's the history that when you know it, you draw nourishment from your history, because your history teaches you the full range of possibility of what you and your people are able to do, what you're able to build. You know what you can do by knowing what your parents and your ancestors have done. And to deprive you as a black student of knowing anything about yourself is to put you in a position where you can't draw nourishment from a root because you've been cut off from your root. So you have a white American Eurocentric root that cannot nourish you to be the kind of people that you should be. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has shown us where it was purposely designed by the slave makers to strip this black people of their names, their language, their culture, their religion, their God. Have you noticed, black brother and sister, that every ethnic group here in northern Illinois has a name that ties them to their ancestry in Europe or Asia, except you? Here's Mr. Schwartz. Here's Miss Scavanelli. Here's Miss O'Hara. If that's an Irish name, you expect O'Hara to lead you back to a landmass called Ireland, which gives them a cultural base. But some of you black brothers and sisters are named O'Hara, Johnson, Jones, Smith, O'Reilly, Culpepper. My brother from Pakistan is named Brother Imran. That name is consistent with his country, with his culture, with his religion. When you walk into northern Illinois and you're registering as Johnny O'Hara, other whites look at him and you and me and say, well, my God, how could I be O'Hara and he's O'Hara? Well, what that means is that somebody named O'Hara was the last slave master of our father before Abraham Lincoln said, y'all are free. And when we got free, we didn't know enough to go in our own people's names. So right now, everything that we do, we glorify somebody else's name. Here's 30 million black people that don't speak one word of their own mother tongue. Those of you who are Italians, those of you who are Greek, those of you who are Jewish, those of you who are whatever your ethnic background is, you go back and speak some part of your own language. Some of you, most of you do. Your grandparents taught you at least a few words. Ask these blacks, what language do they know that is of their own origin? And don't tell me they didn't have a language in Africa. How come they don't know it? How do you take a language away from 30 million people? You know how you do that? You kill their mothers and you kill their fathers and you raise the children away from the parent so that the parent will never teach the children their own language, their own culture, their own history. And so 30 million black people grew up in America with no knowledge of our own cultural roots or past. Now this is a shame before the world. Now you can't just gloss that over in 1985 and say, oh, so what? Black people are suffering right now and they make you suffer because they feel so inferior and you look to them so superior that they don't even feel they're getting along in the world unless they're living in your neighborhood, marrying your daughter, going to school with your mother. And that's a sickness, brother and sister. It's absolutely sick for you to put your black woman down and pick up a white woman. That's sick, man. Look, you say, wait a minute. You say, Farrakhan, that's racism. I think that I should respect white women, and I do. But when I go to choose a wife, I really want my own woman. Is there something wrong with that? Now the Congressional Library of Washington says that the first slaves were brought into America on a ship named Jesus, captained by one Sir John Hawkins or Sir John Hopkins in the year 1555. I'm almost finished. John Hawkins or John Hopkins, the English slave trader, brought our fathers here on a ship named Jesus. Why did he use the ship Jesus? Because our fathers loved the prophets. If you want to trick black people, all you got to do is come in the name of God. And that's why they're in the shape that they're in right now, because their own spiritual nature and love for God has been used by crooked preachers and crooked teachers to rob you of your own value. All praise to Allah. Oh, brothers and sisters, the truth is so beautiful. We just don't have time to tell it all, but we'll tell enough of it in a few more minutes by the help of God. All of your secret societies, some of you here are Masons, some of you here are Shriners, some of you here are Eastern Star. All of your secret orders, whether you realize it or not, are based on yourself. But you don't even know you're reading about yourself. When you're reading about Hiram, the master architect, who you think Hiram is? It's you. Who was hit in the head? Who was brought on a westerly course and buried in the north corner? Who but you? You the one that's been hit in your head. You the one that is dead. You the one that don't have a remembrance of your own great powers and ability. And the Caucasian knows that you are not only his equal, but his superior. Therefore, he fights like hell to keep you blind, deaf, and dumb. And any teacher that will come to you to wake you up, he'll trump up charges on him, follow him until he can kill him to keep you dead, blind, and dumb. So the only way you can ever live is if God determined that you should live, because the Caucasian has determined already that you will stay dead and you will go down to hell with him when he goes. Now listen. Got to do it. I don't know nothing else to teach. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad put it in me. Fear of the enemy of God will cause you to do the will of the enemy and not the will of God. The slave masters of our fathers, when they brought our fathers into America, they knew that our fathers had a knowledge and a strength in God. Some of the early writers of history say that our fathers were brought here to America in the year 1555 and not 1619 as the history books tell us. And from 1555 to 1619, you have 64 hidden years of the black man's history. And this is why when they had on television the $64 question or the $64,000 question, we wondered why 64 and not 65. Why 64 and not 70? Because there were 64 years of your history that was hidden from you. And it was in those 64 years, 3 generations, that you would turn from a noble black man into a so-called American Negro. It took 4 generations, and into the 4th generation, you were already into the condition that the slave master felt nobody could ever get you out of the condition that they had put you in. And that's why the Bible calls you the lost sheep. Because when a sheep is lost, that means it is hopeless. It is past praying for. It is irredeemable, irreconcilable, irreformable. And what they had put us under, they said nobody could reform the black man. Nobody could reconcile the black man in America with his people in Africa and around the world. Nobody could retrieve us, could reconcile us, could redeem us from the condition that they had put us in. Mating members of the same family with members of the same family, mating a brother with his own sister, mating a father with his own daughter, to break down our morals. This, even young white people do not know why black people in 1983 are in the condition that they're in. This is why white people look at us as subhuman people, because they don't understand what their own fathers did to put the black man in the condition that he is in. But I thank Almighty God, Allah, that He has opened my eyes to that knowledge and will not allow me to be afraid to speak it even in the hells of Mississippi, because there's no power in Mississippi to stop me. Many of you here tonight are in Masonic orders, and I don't want you to fret, because it's a hell of an order that you're in when you know the truth and can't tell it to somebody unless they give you the right sign. Every black man that you meet shows a distress sign. He's in distress and he's crying out for light. And if you have the light, why would you leave your brother in darkness? Because you've committed yourself to an oath not to tell the truth. Think about this. The idea that something is different between blacks from the north and blacks from the south, blacks from the east, blacks from the Midwest, blacks from the west, blacks from the Caribbean, blacks from South America, blacks from Central America, blacks from Africa, blacks from the Isle of the Pacific. So when we meet each other, we look at each other, hey, who's that stranger? That's your own brother. You can't recognize your brother now, because you become so divided and so tribalized. This is why Sitting Bull was such a great Native American leader, because he saw the oneness of the whole nation and wanted to bring the tribes together to make one powerful nation. And in that unity, the Western Caucasian could never have conquered them. But because of your disunity, you are a conquered and decimated people today. Well, tribal brothers, tribal sisters, you are no better. We have been victimized under white supremacy, and now we victimize ourselves. So today we call ourselves Muslims of different stripes, Christians of different denominations. It's become tribes. I'm a Christian. I'm not going to hang out with no Muslim. I'm a Baptist, and I will not sit in a pew with a Methodist. I'm Catholic. I'm from the Church of God in Christ. Hallelujah. Shame, shame, shame. Now, we really went off. I'm a blood. I'm a Crip. I'm a gangster disciple. I'm from the Watts Bloods. I'm from the Venice Crips. and you're crippling and blooding and destroying yourself in the name of what? Tribalism. And because you have become enemies of yourself, you can never deal with the real enemy because you are so divided. It's the way you think. According to our research, it was the rabbinical scholars who developed, created the myth of the curse of Ham. Wait, I want you to think with me. Look, brothers, you know, when we went to the movie and saw Step and Fetch It, a black man acting a fool, you know. Mantan Moreland with his eyes bucking. See, we didn't write that part. Somebody wrote that part for one of our brothers to play, but the imagery of us that we saw on the screen fortified the thought that we had in our mind that we were subhuman, inferior, and doomed, almost cursed to be black. And the blacker we are, the more cursed we seem to think we are. So that when a white man would sleep with or rape a black woman to produce somebody my color or lighter, with hair a little more wavy than kinky, a nose a little more thin than broad, lips a little more thin than thick, then they in their social structure made us lighter skinned brothers and sisters to believe that we were better than our darker brother. So they put hatred in among us because of color. Right now, Brother Mandela is president over a country of millions of black people and a handful of white people, but among them is a group that are called coloreds. That group called coloreds voted with and for de Klerk over Mandela because they were lighter, were permitted to study Africana, which is the language of the Caucasian ruler, so that they could feel more superior. Oh, brothers. They would feel more superior to the black because they were closer to the white. Do you know what's going on in Rwanda? Our people are dying by the thousands, slaughtered by their own. But who is at the root of it? You don't know. Who are the Tutsis and who are the Hutus? The Tutsis ain't Tootsie Rolls. And the Hutus ain't owls. The Tutsis are really from the Watusis. Tall, stately, magnificent black people. The Hutus are from the Bantu and even the Pygmy. The Tutsi, though the minority, looks more with a keener nose, even though black, keener features. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the colonial masters educated the Tutsis and put the Tutsis in positions as civil servants, making them to feel they are better than the Hutu. So when the Hutus revolted, they killed the Tutsi. Yes, sir. So then the Tutsis come in power in the Patriotic Front. And we are killing each other because an enemy put us at odds with one another. Look at you. Some of us Bloods and some of us Crips. Some of us have the color blue. Some of us deal with the color red. What the hell is that? That we should kill one another over our color? All of it belongs to us. My dear brothers, we're destroying each other because we don't really understand the root of who we are and what our oppressor is doing to us through us. My Hispanic brothers, La Raza. Who are you? You ain't Spanish. Why? Because you speak Spanish, you Spanish? I speak English, I ain't an Englishman. I speak a little French and a little German. I ain't French and I ain't German. I studied Latin and I speak Latin, but I ain't Latin. You are a victim of the Spanish conquistadors who conquered your people. You are more Indian, Native, African, mixed in. That's why you love the drum. You didn't get that drum, brother, from no Spain, doctor. Whoa. You say, I'm Cuban. I'm Puerto Rico. I'm from Guatemala. I'm from Costa Rica. I'm from Nicaragua. Yeah, you can call all them names. But what's the root? The root is Africa. You've been tricked all the way, brothers. You now hate yourself. You don't like who you are. So if you don't like yourself, when you look in the mirror, you see somebody you don't like. When you see me, you see somebody you don't like. Why you don't like me? Well, that nigga look just like me. I don't like me, I don't like him. So every time you squeeze the trigger on your brother, you're squeezing the trigger on yourself, you're killing something that you hate yourself, you hate him, so you're destroying yourself now. Somebody's dealing wisely with you, made you your worst enemy in the time of your rise. God said, you are my people. And the enemy knows it's your time. But he's so envious of your future. He wants to destroy your future by causing you to become the number one haters and destroyers of yourself. Walk in our neighborhoods and you're looking at a dead people that are not active in the business of life itself. Now, who's taking advantage of that? Who are the vultures? Now, if we're going to make our own community a decent place to live, we first got to remove the vultures. Some are black, right. Some are white, some are Asian, some are Palestinian, some are Jews. Everybody that's sucking the life blood out of our people and our community and doing nothing to make it better, they have to be challenged now. Who's going to do that? Can you make your own community a decent place to live and not stop the violence that's going on in our community, us killing us? No. Somebody has to confront that and resolve conflict and stop the fratricidal conflict. That's a big thing. The next thing is, can you make your community a safe place to live and a decent place to live with the same white supremacist education that our children have to suffer under? No. So it's going to mean we have to take over the education that our children are being miseducated by. That's not no little weak thing to do. When you start cleaning up your community, the rogue cops will come right into view. You cannot clean this community up if the rogue cops are making money from the drugs, keeping the gang conflicts going, trafficking in our women and girls. 10,000 fearless men. Because we're going to have to challenge the things that are destroying our community. So this ain't no punk time. This ain't no temple time, mosque time, or church time. All the singing and shouting and preaching is over. Get in them streets now. Block by block, we're going to have to clean it up. Some of us may die doing it. Some of us may go to jail doing it. But if we attempt to do it soon, our community will be just like the Chinese community. Go down to Chinatown and see what goes on there. Who runs the community? Who educates Chinese children? Who are the business people that set up business in the Chinese community? You can't go there and set up no business. Who polices the Chinese community? It's a free community. It's separate, but it's independent. What kind of community we got? Look at the Jewish community. Look at the Polish, the Italian, the Greek community. Set up their businesses. They own their community. We are so far behind with all this purchasing power. Yeah. Somebody got to teach us. Somebody got to show us. And then we got to put the bodies in the street. I don't care. Now, this is airtime, see? This is like the cowardly drone fellas that sit in a room and maneuver bombs, killing innocent people. The airwaves is not enough. The television screen is not enough. You got to put boots on the ground who are trained and are willing to make the sacrifice of life itself to see our community made a decent place to live. So all those of you who are watching, you know, if you want to be a part of those 10,000 fearless, go to justiceorelse.com and say, Brother Farrakhan, we want to help make our community safe. There's something for all of us to do in this regard. We have a problem of being recognized in a society that our fathers' slave labor built. We have a problem being respected in this society. We have a problem being protected in this society. We have a problem earning our way because we don't have a guide. And those who mockingly call us equal know that you can never be made somebody's equal. Equality is something you have to qualify for. And if you don't know what to expect of yourself, you don't even have the basis to begin to qualify to be equal. And the world knows that we can never be equal with others with nothing. If they are the producers and we are the consumers, if they are the builders and we are those who wait until they build, if they are the farmers and we eat, they are the clothiers and we wear the clothes, they are the makers of shoes and we are the purchasers, and we number over 30 million and produce nothing that we consume, something is wrong somewhere. Some of us get excited because Koreans are coming into the black community and Vietnamese are coming into the black community and Arabs are coming into the black community setting up their businesses. Don't be angry with them. If there's a service that is needed and you will not provide it for yourself and others are smart enough to provide that service for you and then live from that service and grow strong from that service, then don't blame them. Blame yourself. But if they go away to their community saying those black people are inferior, those black people are non-productive, I believe those black people have never done anything worthwhile, don't blame them for these kinds of hostile attitudes where they don't want to receive you. They will never receive you until you are wise enough to receive yourself. They will never respect you until you are intelligent enough to show self-respect. And you cannot show self-respect in a vacuum. Self-respect comes from a knowledge of self, which makes you see yourself as you are. Then you can expect from yourself what you should. When you rob a man of his history and make him think he's nothing, Jesus said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. When we get a degree, when we get qualified, our job is not to serve others, but to have others serve us. To him to whom much is given, much is required. The quality of service that we give to our families, to our community, to our people, and to the world determines the length of our days in terms of history. If we just come on the planet to become wealthy and give nothing in the way of service to the advancement of our people, then we live and we die an ignominious death, because our struggle is vain, because it's a personal thing that has no connection to the ongoing perpetuity of the human family or the nation or race or people out of which we come. You were born to die. But before you got here, black people were, black people are, black people shall be. It is only you and I, the individual, that is finite, but the mass is infinite. So what we should work for is not just for the finite being that is here today and gone tomorrow, but we should lay something down in our life that will benefit those who come after us. And it is the unwillingness of those during their lifetime to make a stand and to make a sacrifice, to make life better for those who come behind, that makes every generation of ours have to start in the same ditch that we started off in. This is a shame, brothers and sisters. We have always been kept outside the gate of white America's promise. And we have sat around her door begging for the crumbs that fall from her table. In the civil rights movement of the 60s, the white man sent the dogs out after the protesters, after the marchers. And you've got to have some compassion on them, brothers and sisters, because it was those marchers that suffered in the streets of Selma, Alabama, those that looted, those that burned, that got you where you are today. Listen, brother and sister, I know you would like to believe that your brilliance got you there. And you are brilliant, don't make any mistake about that, but it's the man on the bottom of the level that's agitating for justice that caused white folks to say, look, we got to have some niggers in here. And here you came. Now, what do you look like coming into corporate America on the heels of your people's suffering, and then get in the door and start acting the fool? Yes, I have arrived now. You can't remember the people that are suffering. Right now in Miami, Florida, this wicked, recalcitrant government with a deceitful president, James Earl Carter, who promises what he don't intend to deliver and changes the promise within a week or two. At the Urban League conference, he said he's going to open up millions and millions and millions of jobs. One of his buddies the other night said, well, it would be hundreds of thousands. You go ahead and believe in the garbage, you hear? And let me tell you something, brother. As long as you sit around waiting for some white man to make things better for you, and you don't think that you and I united can make it better for ourselves, you and I will be meeting like this 100 years from now talking about how good we can make it. All praise is due to Allah. Brothers and sisters, hanging outside the gate of America's promise, now you see the rich man slowly but surely going to hell, just as the Bible's prophecy teaches. White man's dollar that used to be number one in the world, sinking. It used to be backed by gold. It used to be backed by silver. Now it's not backed by any sound value. You agree? That's true. It used to be called a silver certificate. Now it's a Federal Reserve note. It ain't even money anymore. He's a racist, I understand. Talks a lot of that old black stuff. How will you respond? Were there any whites in attendance? Well, no, I didn't see any hardly. Well, that smacks of racism to me. I don't think you should go to that meeting anymore, because after all, we're fighting hard to put black and white together. What's the need of you all coming together without our presence? And some of us will say, you're right, boss. I ain't going back no more. But others of us will say, sir, with all due respect, when the B'nai B'rith meets, we're not there. And we don't call you all racist because you have a meeting that we don't attend. We know we ain't Jews, so we don't go to the door. When the Italian Americans meet, you don't call that racism. When the Polish Americans and the Irish Americans and the Greek Americans meet, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't call that racism when they have their own social clubs, their own this and their own that, to talk about problems that are common to their ethnic group. Why should there be a problem when black folk meet to discuss problems as they relate to us and our group? Why should we be racist? Put him on the defensive. I just thought I would throw this out through the lecture, tell you some things that they're going to do to make it hard for you to meet next year this time. But I don't want to waste a lot of time, because you're brilliant enough, and I hope you're courageous enough to stand up. There's nothing more disgusting than a man who is made to feel and act like a little boy because of the fear of the loss of a job. You got to remember that the white man brought our fathers into America for that very purpose, to give them a job. And as long as you're not working for yourself, it's just a modern plantation, only you're in the upper room of the plantation, but the same boss that ordered your daddy orders you. So let's not get carried away, because you're not really working until you're working for yourself. You're not really working until you're building something that you can pass on to your children, because you can't pass Xerox on to your children. You can't pass AT&T on to your children. You can't pass Kodak on to your children. All you can say is, baby, I worked in that building. That's my office up there behind the latrine on the 66th floor.
Now look, you have spent, some of you, $50, $75, $125 on whiskey alone. You have bought the biggest ham. Tell me I'm lying. Nasty diseased pork that eat everything it can find and then some. Any of you that raise hogs, you know what I'm talking about. That's the nastiest looking creature you ever gazed at. See that hog in the field walking behind a cow. Cow drop its dung and here come the hog eating the cow's dung. Am I lying? They send that hog into swamps to kill the snakes. Snakes biting on the hog, pouring all kind of venom in that thing. And the hog still stepping. And then you turn around and eat that nasty strychnine wormed flesh. Got you a big ham. That thing is so filthy and funky. Oh yeah, it's a bad smelling thing. And I know you bought a lot of chitlins. I know you got a house full of chitlins and hog head cheese. Getting ready for New Year's Day with your black-eyed peas and your field beans. I understand, brother. Old slave is about to get on down. Oh, brother and sister. That hog is so filthy, it's got little holes in its paws here. If they get stopped up, he act like he's going crazy. Because it's a natural sewerage draining all the pus and stuff out of that thing. You notice when you hold on to that pig foot, it don't want to let you go. They say, yeah, well, we can eat the hog, we just have to cure it. Well, if you cure it, it must have been sick. Well, we know it got little worms in, but if you cook it at the right temperature, and what is that? After you cooked it at the right temperature, what have you cooked? Then you think them worms have died? Not them worms. Them worms start cooking when they get inside you, moving on into the joints, forming little cysts in the joints, in the muscles, get right on into the spinal cord, find their way right on up into your brain, dulling and dumbing what you ain't got, robbing you of your beauty appearance. Some of you are young men, look old and tired, your eyes muddy, red and yellow. We don't know whether to stop or proceed with caution when we look at you. Look at it, brother. All these big guts. Talking about this is the Chippy's playground. Stomach down on your knees. 25 and 30 years old, out of shape. Because you don't know how to eat to live. Following this white man, his way of life has brought death to you. The pig, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, was created for medicinal purposes, not to be eaten by anybody. God knew we were coming into a world that would rebel against him, and in that rebellion would cause people to die an untimely death due to disease. So he created the hog from 3 low animals through the grafting of cat, rat, and dog. He made a hog. Yeah, look at it. That pig sometimes bark like a dog. Got this little funny looking tail like a rat.
It's all part of it. Now, would you go home and sit down and eat cat, rat, and dog put together? Well, that's what you're eating when you eat Mr. Pig. I know you're hot with me. But I'm not angry with you. Don't get angry with me because I'm trying to give you some sense. Be angry with somebody that robbed you of good sense. That you would sit there and eat up this nasty, filthy animal and say it's good. It is not good. Everything that tastes good is not good. It has a little worm in it that you can't kill. They tell you heat it to so many and so many degrees or smoke it and you'll kill the little strychnine worm. Not so, brother. You can heat it all the way up to whatever temperature you want. You eat bacon, you eat ham, you eat pork chop, you eat ham hock, you eat any part of the pig, and you eating a mouthful. Every mouthful you put in is a mouthful of these little strychnine worms. And they get right down inside you and they come alive and start moving. Yeah, they do a dance too. They know you love to move, so they just move right with you. Before you know it, the hog working in your muscles, working in your joints. When it gets to your spinal column, it's over. It travels right up the spine into the cells of your brain. It sounds your mental power, and every time you eat it, it takes away some of your beauty appearance. Your eyes become yellow and dull and red looking. You begin to take on the attributes of a pig. It's not your fault. The white man fed us this when we were slaves. We didn't know nothing about hog back in Africa. We didn't eat this nasty thing back there. We learned that since being among these rebellious devils.
Joe.
Blacula.